this is the second session of 4 that I'll be doing with Kevin and Reed. And this session is kind of around what good looks like. So last session we were talking about kind of the best way to think about AI, starting building AI into your business. And this is a little bit more about how to measure what good actually looks like, when to know that your decisions are paying off, that your the system that you're building is actually worth building. So it's some guidelines as to how to measure that. So as I mentioned last session, AI is great at fitting into pattern work, not so much just judgment. Your homework, I gave a little bit of homework, was to find like a biggest time eater within your company that passed the 3 questions mentioned last week. So if you do have that in mind, keep it in mind, because today shows you exactly what to do with it. And if you didn't, now's the time to think of one. So we're identifying in the first instance where time is being spent or where you'd like to save it with the AI system. So knowing AI fits somewhere in the business isn't the same as knowing where it fits in the business. So this is where most AI projects die. There's a lot of ideas. The tool might even be right, but nobody's mapped the business first. So the money goes to the wrong place and the tool joins the graveyard of subscriptions. So there's something happening quite a lot. People are investing in CRMs and new kind of shiny AI tools. But one thing that I'm really passionate about, or that I'm trying to kind of drill in during this course, is the importance of auditing the business first, understanding the flow of information and the tech stack. These might be foreign concepts to a lot of us as we start thinking about businesses more as kind of flowing nodes on a graph or beyond the org chart, but where the actual tech stack of the business, what it touches, where the information goes. These are really important to understand what the tech stack function is and what the people, if you imagine people in the organization as nodes on this graph as well, what information do they touch? Where are they getting that information from? How does data move? It's very important to start building these kind of flow graphs so you can see and understand exactly where AI can be best attributed. So a little bit more on that later, but in the first, following on from what I was just saying, how to get buy-in. So the honest answer is usually a definition problem. Nobody can approve we should do something with AI. Anyone can approve a defined problem with measured cost and a priced solution. So again, this is all about clarity. That's kind of what the audit is. It's not paperwork before the project. It's the thing that turns the ambition into a decision we sign off on and make. So having very kind of clear parameters for what this system's going to do, exactly where it's going to save time, and then costing that out, and so you can measure the savings, is going to be really important from a governance perspective to anybody making those kind of key decisions within internal to the company, of course. So the layers, how information flows, where it enters, who it touches, and where it gets stuck. So if you're bringing in if you're generating leads through kind of your ads, that's data coming into the business. You know the money you're spending on ads. You know how the job it is to audit those ads, to recommend changes, to recommend copy changes, produce that copy, to deliver it. That's one example of kind of like a workflow within a business. But where are those like ad reports being stored? Where are the metrics being defined? Whose job is it to oversee that? What kind of conversations are they having around that data? And then how does that get used to develop the process? These are all questions that you need the answers to in order to build the most cost-effective and effective AI solution ultimately. So how information flows, what your stack already knows. Again, this is a combination of databases, the information system, what other tools are you using, what other CRMs are you using Monday.com to store information, what's on there, other conversations, like WhatsApp, mission, the specific workflow targeting, and who are the kind of nodes along that pathway. Their knowledge of the work that's taking place is fundamental to understanding how the AI solution is going to slot in and save time and money. And then where the time actually goes, measured, not guessed. So this is the last part of that, understanding where people are spending their time, how they're communicating, and what information they're engaging with. So again, the information, There's the official version, which is what the org chart of the business says or alludes to. Inquiries coming in, goes to a CRM, gets assigned, actioned, clean documented. This is usually a fiction. What tends to actually happen is on WhatsApp or an impersonal channel. It gets forwarded twice, it lives in someone's, then it gets retyped into 3 systems. That's where the time is going. That's kind of an example of how data can get diluted as it enters the company. So the audit that we aim to run maps the real version. The gap between the two is where the biggest opportunity lives in terms of closing that vector and saving time and money by installing a solution that can handle those processes. But I guess to put a bow on it, the the answer is to understand those processes in detail before committing to spend on an AI project. So your tools already know things you never use. So your CRM knows every conversation, CRM, if it's kept clean. The inbox knows every promise made and question asked, and also the deals that you're negotiating. And your finance system knows which work actually pays. So the correlation is what you're looking for. Everything built on top inherits the mess. It's better to go through and understand exactly what's happening along these processes across the business before committing to building an AI solution on top of those. A lot of this is about just understanding the kind of ground truth of how your business deals with information across the whole business, but specifically drilling that down, ironing it, and refining it into exactly what workflow you're trying to replace. Because the best solution is built from a place of understanding and awareness. So where the time actually goes, ask anyone where their week goes, and they'll guess wrong. Measure it, even roughly for 1 week, and patterns appear. The report nobody reads, the data retyped between systems, the same question answered 40 times. Cost it honestly. How many hours are we spending on this per week? Whether it's a report, whether it's, ad reporting, how many hours is it costing us per week? How many people are involved in that process? Give real numbers, exactly how much time we're losing, and what number can we use to bring to leadership to then articulate how we're going to save time with this solution. You can then obviously attribute a cost to it if you add it up per week, per month. How long are we spending? How much time is this process costing us that we can then save with a one purchase of a solution or the commitment to build a solution over time? So score every opportunity the same way. Ask, does it repeat and follow a pattern? What is it costing us now? That's what I've just mentioned. So hours times people times rate, real numbers, and the time returned per pound spent. Build the top of the list first and ignore the bottom, honestly. So AI that sticks has 4 things. It has a named owner. So this is ownership. People are trying to build solutions that kind of just vanish into businesses or vanish onto the top of tech stacks that don't actually serve a purpose. No, it's important to have someone who's dedicated part of their role or time to actually own this system, whether that's an external contractor or somebody who's built the system, or whether it's somebody trained on it within your team. It's important to have a member of staff or a team, depending on the scale and size of the project, of course, who understands it intimately, can action and fix changes as they appear, and can actually make the project work within the context of the business past the point of it being built. Obviously, it helps massively if everything before this is built into it, so you're working with a system that you know works in context, but it's important to have somebody be responsible for this system. Someone who has oversight of it, understands how it works, can provide insight into what it's doing on a day-to-day basis. Point 2 is that it lives inside the workflow, so not a separate tab that nobody opens. Actually, where the work happens, it's connected to live data. It's connected to your either conversations, your Slack, your CRM. It can actually be observed performing a function rather than just disappearing again into the tech stack. A feedback loop. So people using it can say what's wrong, and somebody listens and then fixes it. Again, this ties into point 1 in terms of ownership, but having a feedback loop, so these solutions, once they're built, don't just disappear. There's oversight. We're monitoring how the system behaves. We're understanding that it's something we're building over time, which we're committed to, and we can report on the system itself. did it perform that last task as intended, as expected? Is it saving us the amount of time we purchased it to save on a week by week basis? Are we measuring its impact consistently and accurately relative to the time we were spending before, prior to its integration? These are the kind of things you want to be monitoring over the first 3 to 6 months of using a solution once it's built. And then honest expectations is the final point. Value measured at 3 months, not demanded after 4 weeks. As I mentioned on the last call last week, these solutions, if built correctly, are going to be time commitments for any business. So to build them right, it's going to take a bit of time. You're going to need to be, or people making in the decision-making chair are going to have those expectations set early. This isn't something which is going to come in overnight and then magically fix a bunch of problems. It's something that you're going to have to build, you're going to have to work on, you're going to have to iterate within the business, because having a system work in the business for real is going to throw up edge cases that also need to be addressed within the workflows. There's always more going on than initially planned, so that has to be built into the build time and managed with decision makers when it comes to their expectations. The system is going to be in the first instance, the system wants to grow with the business, and as you understand to use it and develop it, it's going to grow with the people who have ownership of it, and it's going to develop within the business. So you need to have that expectation set, that it's not just going to come in and you're going to click your fingers and things are going to be different. You want to measure it over a period of time as the system becomes integrated within the business and staff actually begin using it. So how good tools get abandoned? This is a true story, anonymized, of course. A service desk rolls out an AI agent, AI assistant. It's deployed without asking people who'd use it. It can only signpost instead of solve. There's no way to feedback to what's wrong, and it gets pushed onto more channels before it's fixed on the first one. So the result is people learn to route around it. This is obviously massively common with any new tech solution within businesses. If the solution isn't working as intended and people aren't trained on it accurately, humans will always find a way to not use new tech solutions. So it's important that we understand the system and that we can train our staff on it to avoid having it just lost in the tech stack and become another expensive piece of tech that nobody uses. So a little more homework. Map one process within the business. This is crucial for finding where your AI solution is going to live. Take your time meter from today, if you have one in your mind, and write down its real journey. So where information comes from, every hand it passes through, every system is retyped into, and where that information ends up. This is just an exercise in understanding how information moves through the business, and put a rough cost on it. How many hours per week, how many people, and what those hours cost, and then bring the number with you next week. But having a clear understanding of how much time you're spending on a specific task, what that relates to in terms of savings, where it replaced, these are going to be crucial numbers for you to understand as we progress towards building a system or understanding where the system would fit in the first instance. So this was a bit shorter, but there's 2 sessions left. This is what good looks like, and then next week we'll be looking into putting things into work, what building actually entails front to back, and getting your team to adopt it. If you are looking for a quick audit for your business, I've got a free audit up on my website, which you can look at. There's a link right here. I'll send this document over to you. And as part of an official engagement, we do a deep audit across entire businesses anyway, but I'm more than happy to answer some questions if people have them.
Yeah. So Amari, you asked us to bring our number one time eater. Is that something that if we discuss today, you can
I'd love to
shed some light on?
Yeah,
what was your thought process behind that homework?
Absolutely.
So did anybody or on the spot, does anybody have an idea of the kind of core thing in their business that is eroding the time of their staff members that they think they could automate? And while people's thinking, I'll come in. So I know, Amari, you've done a lot with recruitment. Obviously, that's the business I work in. There's an obvious one here, which I struggle to really justify the business case for automating, because it's in theory, I don't think it actually is, but it's in theory the thing that clients pay us to do, which is sift CVs, find candidates.
Yeah.
Now, because it's what the clients pay us to do, it is the biggest thing we spend time on doing, is actually making sure that across all the channels that we've got access to people, whether that's networks like this, whether that's events, actual applications. How do you, what solutions have you seen clients use? Or let me actually phrase this in the way that you asked the question. Our biggest time eater is taking those massive numbers of potential candidates for a role and summarizing that into the top 6 that the client should interview. That's my use case.
That would be your time eater.
Tell me what you do, Amari.
So what I would do is, first of all, I'd want to see so we'd look at tech stack, right? So the first thing would be, where are these candidates coming from in terms of the separate systems? Because I'm assuming they're not all coming from one place within the business, or they're not just coming from LinkedIn. You've got, I'm assuming, a CRM with like a database of candidates, and then you're searching for matches, which are either also in the database, or you're pulling them from a platform like LinkedIn.
Yeah, so we have a database, massive database.
Yeah.
We have some sources that integrate into that database. So when we post an advert externally, it does feed in and populate our database, and those become one combined talent pool. But then we also have some sources that don't integrate. So an application to a LinkedIn advert doesn't integrate into our CRM. So you're reviewing our CRM, you're reviewing the LinkedIn response. You're reviewing people that have seen your advert and know you and messaged you in your LinkedIn messaging. Maybe someone that's WhatsApped you because they know you already and they've seen a job advert that reader are posting. So variety of data sources.
So the first thing I'd be looking to do is I'd be looking to kind of delineate that by what's in the database in terms of candidates, what's in the database in terms of jobs, and then the companies that jobs are coming from would be kind of tagged as well. So I built a system like this for a recruitment agent actually before, and essentially you would set it up so you have those sources connected together, primarily the database being your big one. And what you would be doing is, as you received CVs, you would essentially set like an ICP for this AI system for it to understand and read what you were looking for in terms of ranking jobs by relevancy, and then you would be able to create a system whereby you could place a CV within the system, say, or you could place a job within the system, or click a job, depending on how you wanted the front end structured. You could click a job, you could click a candidate you had saved in the database, and it would immediately pull up and rank according to your ICP the top 6, for example, based on what was in the database or based on what you had received from a platform. As long as you've got those platforms delineated and the understanding of how the data moves in and out of them is understood, you can set up systems quite easily that will rank and file systems according to an ICP. But what you're going to want is obviously observability, and you're going to want to be able to test that over time to make sure the results are accurate to what you would want to find as a human recruiter. And then you would just spec your ICP to refine that over time and create the best matches you possibly can, which would obviously save you a lot of time in terms of leafing through the database. But the way I would work through it is definitely tech stack first, understanding where the matches and where the inputs are coming from ultimately, and then the system simply matches that against what's saved in the database.
Yeah, and how, when you're starting on that kind of journey to come up with a solution, how would you determine where you need human in the loop, and how much of that decision making you actually delegate to an AI solution rather than having a human have the final say on what's shared with the client, for example?
Yeah, so I think it's a sliding scale. In my own systems that I use, it starts off with build observability kind of at every step whilst you're building the system, whilst you're testing it. And testing is a very key phase that I think isn't discussed enough when these solutions are being deployed. Imagine any kind of like tech product. Just because we have ownership of it ourselves now doesn't mean we should kind of neglect a period of testing. There should always be a good period of testing where you could dial in the results, but it's almost, if you triangle, like this. At the beginning, you're going to be observing a lot. As the system increases in efficacy and you can trust it a little bit more, you may dial it back so you just have specific gated checkpoints. So in the first instance, you might want to check exactly what the process of every single match is going through. Once you've set the ICP, that might be something you need in the first instance to boost your confidence. When you can see over a period of time that those matches are coming in accurately, you might only want to check when it's made the matches the 6 recommended. And then after that, once you trust the system even more, there may be a scenario where you trust it to send even those briefs to client, because you have observed enough times over a period of time that it's producing good results, or results that you're happy with. So maybe there's just a final approval gate once like a package is put together with the match, with the email generated to the candidate you want to speak to, because you can kind of have it all generated. You can increase what gets generated depending on your kind of, I guess, trust level or how comfortable you are with the system over time. But my point is essentially it grows with the experience the system has, with the amount of data it has access to, and with your general confidence in the system over time. But you always want to have a human approval gate at the very least, so you can review what's being sent and step in if it needs to be changed.
Yeah, no, thank you. Does anybody else have any processes that they see as like real time eaters in their organization that they're thinking about, whether it's fit for purpose for an AI automation?
I can go. I think this is something that we are considering. So I work in retail, so it's more about we get a lot of emails from customers.
Yep.
So I'm looking at kind of automating that response to some of the basic emails, not everything, which does not really require a lot of information gathering, or the information is like quite simple to get from some source. The only question I had was, you talked about testing it.
Yes.
AI solution. Is there, I don't know, best practice on how to test these AI solutions, or is it more about observe it, how much human updates are required, and I keep track of it, or is there anything more structured, or I don't know, some framework for testing AI solutions?
Yeah, I mean, so it's going to depend. Obviously, everybody's situation is now it's bespoke, because these tools are not going to be one size fits all. Everything's going to be made kind of bespoke. So it does depend on the architecture of the system. But what I would ultimately want to see from an email response agent is it responding in our tone of voice? Is that being set? Is there a dial we can access that adjusts the tone of voice to make sure it sounds like our business? Does it have access to previous emails as examples, so it can see how we usually respond and what our, again, like brand sounds like when responding to prospective clients or responding to inbound? Are we able to review those emails before they get sent? So we can have like an approval gate, as I mentioned before. Yep. And what exactly are we saying ultimately? Like, can we adjust the copy? Is there a store of maybe many emails across different circumstances that we can use to show the model how it should be responding to certain inbound? Because that you can essentially create like an agentic file storage of inbound and outbound examples that then the model can attribute to future messaging quite easily.
Okay.
So that's not a super complicated system, but yeah, I would definitely be looking at how the copy is created in terms of your brand tone of voice, and then grading it alongside.
So do you need to maintain like a set of sample inbound and outbound to train that? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, having samples would be a great way to keep that.
Okay.
Locked in.
And it seems to me, Amara, like that would be a case where you'd need a very good understanding of the data that the AI solution has access to, and then some guardrails around how it uses that information, because you might want to see some examples of previous interactions with customers to kind of gauge typical types of response templates, typical, like you said, tone of voice, and using those previous engagements to train the model. But make sure you've not got any kind of data privacy issues there, where the content of those emails and the content of that customer's query is somehow shared with either whether it's an agent that's working in good faith or bad faith, actually trying to find that information or not, that they're not suddenly shared Joe Bloggs' scenario where this will happen and that gets somehow incorporated into the response. How do you manage that kind of guardrails in that scenario?
You just have to be very explicit with the agentic with the instructions to the agents. I think I want to be a little bit careful with terminology here. I know you mentioned train the model. So in this instance, I'm assuming you're not using a local trained model and you're using kind of like an API call in your system to like an Anthropic or a ChatGPT or something like that. In those instances, you would set up kind of your response agent with kind of very clear definitional prompts about what it can and can't say and what it can and can't respond to. This is something that I've got working. So, for example, on my website, there's a little chat you can talk to, and that's governed by similar instructions in terms of what it can and can't say. Those are quite effective in basic systems. If you're dealing with something which is a lot more integrated into internal databases and is doing more beyond kind of just email responses, then yes, you're going to want something a little bit more robust in terms of guardrails, because it's going to have access to a lot more data. In terms of emails, you can pretty much just use some quite sophisticated prompting to guardrail out the likelihood of it talking about, say, for example, someone else's email in the body response to another email. You can also isolate the response band, so every time it responds to a new email, it doesn't have oversight of the whole inbox in it at the time of its response. It's a little bit fiddly. What we're going into now, it becomes a kind of a technical conversation, but you can essentially prevent the model that you're calling in a response instance from having full oversight of the inbox. So you can set it so it would only have oversight of the message it should be responding to at any given time, and then the examples in a separate database. It doesn't necessarily have to be reading the entire email list every time it responds to one email. And I think that's how you would circumnavigate some of those issues you're mentioning there, Kevin.
Yeah, makes sense. Any follow-up questions from that, Naya, or is that?
That sounds good. As I said, I think we are still in a very early phase. It's more of identification of use case kind of stage as
maybe it's something that when you get to a more advanced stage, you might want to try that free audit and on that process and see if you've
absolutely
got
I can send a link to everybody if they wanted to have a play with it. It's free. It'll print out a nice document to assist you with your AI integration journey, and do some research based on your responses, and then just give you some feedback. It's quite a useful system, actually. But I'll send that link to Kevin and he can distribute it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent. Anybody else have any use cases they wanted to bring up?
Awesome. I will provide Kevin with the document again as per last week, and you guys can take a look at it in your own time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amari. Appreciate your time again. Looking forward to session number 3.
Very welcome.
Same time next week, so 11 o'clock on the Tuesday.
Yep.
And yeah, if there is any things that people wanted to share with Amari or ask about outside of the recording, then feel free to connect to him on LinkedIn or send me a message and I'll be able to join the dots for you. But other than that, have a great afternoon, everybody, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.